Ladies and gentlemen, for your attention, we still have some resident of the Suva Retailers Association, Jitesh Patel.
As you know that, COVID-19, of course, has had to state the obvious, debilitating effect on the global economy. And as was talked about last year, that there would be some form of stabilization, if you like, with the vaccine coming into the market. And at the moment, that's the latest talk. There are a number of suppliers. In fact, we just have been having meetings in the past couple of days in respect of the vaccine. There's a number of issues pertaining to the vaccine. Of course, the first one is the availability of the vaccine in the right quantity for the respective countries, the cost of the vaccine, the logistical implementation of the vaccine. As you know that all of the companies that have made the vaccine, an individual requires 2 doses of the vaccine, except there's one company, and please don't ask me to quote the name of the companies because they're all very fancy sounding and I don't remember all of them. Out of all of the ones that have so far that have come into the market, one of them specifically does not require a second round of inoculation. So all of them require 2 doses. So logistical implementation of that, and of course, as you know, some of the vaccines require it to be stored at minus 60 degrees Celsius, and others, are quite happy at room temperature between +2 to +8 degrees Celsius. Of course, what we did last year is, that we had a COVID-19 budget response budget that was delivered in February, March of last year, as soon as we had our first case. And then subsequently, of course, delivered the budget that was applicable for the normal financial year. In that budget, as a lot of you would know, and some of you I see in this room actually have taken advantage of that particular budget announcement. There's a number of incentives to actually, in particular, targeting local investors for them to be able to actually invest and provide the right incentives, right environment for them to be able to invest. Whether it's in land subdivision, whether it's in building of warehouses, whether it's in respect of decreasing the cost of business, for example, getting rid of business licenses, getting rid of stamp duties, and various other incentives that we did put in place to create that level of confidence, in particular with the local investors. Now, I think there's quite a few things at play, and we can talk about this for hours. Somebody said at one stage that 80% of the economy is psychology. And a lot of people have said to me, yes, I'm quite willing to invest, but I want that guy to start it first, and after he does it, then I'll do it. And most of the times in the economy, that's what it is like. This is why I was very, glad to go to the Ashabhai site in Nandi, at the Votolevu subdivision, just opposite Fiji Airways, where they're putting in a very large cold storage facility. I understand can store up to minus 20 degrees Celsius. So it'll help, with a lot of our sort of supply chain issues in that area. There's also a couple of other companies that I've been to some sites where there have been some subdivisions are being carried out. For example, one in Lautoka. Yesterday, just talking to a couple of the businesses where they have decided to invest up to about $40 million. So a lot of the times we see the confidence level increasing because other people are doing it and people feel a bit buoyed. My fundamental message is this, is that the vaccines, we will get the vaccines. Of course, it's our issue to deal with the issue of when it will come. And of course, from our perspective, we want it yesterday. We want the vaccine that has actually been certified by WHO. There's a couple of ones that are in the market that don't necessarily have all the ticks from WHO. So the moment that the vaccine comes up and the borders open up and we get the tourism, for example, flowing, and there's normal flow of goods and services and trade and people, there will be a flurry of activity. And in that flurry of activity, the question that you should ask is, how have you positioned yourself? Are you going to be somebody that's going to react to the flurry of activity? Or are you going to be somebody that's been proactive to be able to take advantage of that flurry of activity from day one? That really is the question. And of course it boils down to individual businesses, whether you have the capacity, the access to finance to be able to make those investments now, or whether you'll be able to do so a bit later on. But I think that's the fundamental issue, and that's the message that we have been giving. In all of this, from our perspective, is that there are certain key objectives that we wanted fulfilled. So if you look at, for example, the policy announcement regarding no taxation on profits from subdivision of land and sales of the proceeds that won't get taxed, it fulfills also our own policy objective, which is we want more Fijians to have access to their own homes. We want to increase the rate of home ownership. So there's also new opportunities for people to get into areas, and I've said this before to many businesses. Some of you may have been dealing in retail for the past 30, 40 years. Some of you may be dealing in, say, duty-free now, but if you go back into your family history, they started off retailing in some other area. So you should not think that because I've been doing a particular trade or particular business for the past 20, 30 years, that's what I'm restricted to. There are opportunities, as we've seen now in agriculture, enormous opportunities in agriculture. I mean, some of the, without naming some of the family companies who I know, personally, when they started off, when their great-grandfather or grandfather started off the business they were engaged in was completely different to what they're doing now. So what's there stopping you from engaging in a business that you are not currently doing now, but for you to get into that new area of business? So the philosophy behind that is, of course, please look for new opportunities. This COVID environment, we have to look at it from a glass half full as opposed to half empty. And we have to be able to remain positive. I'm not saying be unrealistic, but be positive about it. And we are here from a government perspective to be able to create the right environment. When many people in Fiji never dreamt, I'm sure many of you in this room, if I did a survey now, I never dreamt that we would get rid of stamp duties. Many people never dreamt they would get rid of business licenses. And the New Zealand High Commissioner is here, they don't have business licenses in New Zealand. We took a leaf out of their page. So we have looked to other jurisdictions as to what we can do and how we can improve. There is, of course, yes, a period of uncertainty. Last year we were saying that the only certain thing about COVID-19 is the uncertainty it presents. We've been through various phases. Early on we were told that the most vulnerable were children. Then we were told, no, they're the least vulnerable. It's the elderly that's the most vulnerable. Now we are being told that the way or the target audience that should be vaccinated in particular countries like Fiji, that is COVID contained, should be different, as opposed to those countries that actually have COVID. But one thing I can say for sure, and I'm sure all of you would agree, because I'm sure you have interactions with people in other jurisdictions, we are extremely lucky because of the decisive decisions taken by government that we are actually COVID contained. Many countries, what we have now is not possible. We were recently, I remember a few weeks back, with a meeting where people from other jurisdictions were just looking and saying, the first comment they made, they said, we think you're so lucky, none of you are wearing masks in the room. All of us have to wear masks. In some countries or some states it's become mandatory. We actually have a flow of people going off to having holidays in the West, and at least some of the hotel rooms are occupied and people are getting employed. So I think we have to be able to remain positive, not be unrealistic, but be positive about it and look at the opportunities that can be offered. There's no doubt that there are a number of areas that from a bureaucratic perspective, we're still looking at improving. There needs to be a number of areas that we need to very quickly improve, whether it's in terms of processing in terms of approvals. Some ministries or certain departments are doing better than others. So we have a game plan as to how we can improve those ones. We look forward to your feedback, concrete feedback as to what we can do. As we've said before also previously, that let's look at some of the realistic ways in which we can actually improve the environment. And I hope that the Retailers Association, Suva, will actually think outside the box. We'll be able to make some concrete and practical suggestions as to how we can improve, and to be able to ensure that we take advantage once the borders open up. There are investment opportunities. The government has been putting out various bonds, etc. There are certain prospectus. Hopefully, we'll be putting out very soon. Look at that. We are looking at, for example, secondary market trading in terms of the bond market in Fiji. Generally, people sort of buy it. They get the certificate, put it in their drawer, and wait for the 5, 10, 7-year term to mature, and then they simply just sort of redeem it. But a lot of countries actually do secondary market trading in that, and we actually geared up towards that. I've just sort of spotted the governor of the Reserve Bank of Fiji. Sorry, I didn't see him earlier on. But there's a number of, there's one new piece of legislation that's been brought before Parliament that will actually help, getting more into the electronic space in terms of settlement, in terms of real-time settlements, in terms of the creating the environment for secondary market trading. And look at those opportunities. And we're quite open to, have discussions with you. I've had numerous, both individuals and groups, arranging for meetings. I'm quite happy to do that. Sometimes there's a lot of, rumor mongering that goes around, a lot of, anecdotal, stories out there, but they're not necessarily true. So we're quite happy to talk to you and be able to, facilitate investment and business in Fiji. So thank you very much, and I'm quite happy now to take any questions, queries you may have. Naka, thanks.